you just start by telling the people a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me, Brian. Name is Eric Siu. I just my goal is kind of to just buy and build marketing businesses. So I got a lot of my lot of hands, different hands in different cookie jars. But yeah, I got a podcast called Marketing School, another one called Leveling Up. Got a book coming out called Leveling Up, and then there's a software company I own called ClickFlow, and another one called Ad Agencies, and then another one called Ad Agencies, another ad agency called Single Grain, and then I have two operators that run those. So
Nice. I actually, so this, because this is actually like an agency focused podcast, I do want to focus a little bit on single grain, but
sure.
a lot of those things, even from my personal, personal kind of understanding, because I have a very similar, somewhat portfolio of companies. I call myself a marketing entrepreneur. So I'm always curious to see how other people manage their time, and building teams too, which is everything, as you already know. But I do want to start with single grain a little bit. So single grain only does ads. Like what is your offer, I guess?
Yeah, good question. So when I first took it over, it was a failing SEO agency because the work that we did due to Panda Penguin was no longer relevant. And so we switched it over to become a paid media company. So most of our revenues are driven from that. And then about 20 to 30% comes from SEO.
Okay. And how do you break those out? Is it, so you guys are ads first, people mainly coming to you for ads, and then you upsell SEO, or how does that work?
Yeah, some people do come directly for SEO, but usually it's a combination or it's paid ads and then an upsell to SEO.
Okay, cool. And how does your offer, not your offer, but how does your model work on ads? Do you take percentage revenue? Like if I were to come to you and have you guys manage my ads, how do you guys manage that?
Yeah, so there's two models. One is a typical retainer, like let's say 5 grand or 15%, which is what everyone knows. The other one is more of a pay for performance type of model where, you pay us you pay us $500 per lead. We might get the lead for $200. You pay us, we make the margin, and that's a lot more exponential and scalable. The way we look at it right now is as we try to transition fully into that model, it's a stock portfolio where 10 to 20% might be the risky stuff. The other, 70, 80% is, maybe not bonds, but safer stuff.
And how do you hedge against that? Do you charge like an upfront setup fee, or is it all you guys foot the entire bill until it's profitable?
Yeah, great question. So I actually got this from, I was watching this guy on YouTube. I used to watch your stuff on YouTube quite a bit. Whenever you have something new, I'll watch it. But this guy, he has something called Flexible. And basically what he does is I'll say, hey, Ryan, why don't you pay me 10 grand up front so you have some skin in the game, and we'll run ads for a week, see how it goes. If you like it, we'll continue on, and then we'll just pay you back each week. And then, hopefully we make some margin there. So.
Nice. Yeah, that's a really good offer. We've been focusing a lot, especially with the agency folks out here, just kind of like positioning and offers. And I mean, because the industry is so saturated with agencies, consultants,
Yeah.
etc. I find that positioning and just kind of having a really good offer is really how you stand in the market. So has that offer in terms of kind of like, it's just, there's a lot less risk, right, for the client as opposed to paying for, retainer and then ad spend and all that stuff. Has that been something that's accelerated your growth?
I will say when we first tried this a couple of years ago, when we didn't have the infrastructure for it, it was very easy to sell. Like very quickly I think I only sent out maybe 20 emails, but we got 5 clients from it.
Nice.
We just weren't ready to fulfill. If I were to make this more practical, because I think there's quite a bit of work that goes into this. If you're solo and you're, kind of like you can kind of do it all, give it a shot. But I think for most people, what I've noticed is when we niche down to focus on SaaS companies or big tech, we had a much easier time commanding higher prices, shorter sales cycles and all that.
And talk to me a little bit more about that, because I think that's a really key point. How did you guys determine which industry and vertical and niche to exploit?
Yeah, I think because I had a background working in SaaS, maybe, 8, 9 years ago, that was the foothold. And I happen to know a lot of people in SaaS, and unintentionally with my first podcast, Leveling Up, it was previously called Growth Everywhere. I interviewed a lot of SaaS people, a lot of SaaS founders. And so I had those relationships. And plus I spoke at a lot of SaaS conferences around the world. So naturally I was like, okay, that just makes sense. And there's not a lot of people doing that right now. So.
Yeah, for sure. Again, that's one of the first things that I really push folks to do is when they come to us and ask us, about how to get leads and build a pipeline. the first thing I ask is who do you service and what's your offer?
Yep.
And most people just say like, because we work with SEO agencies, it's like, I help businesses get more organic traffic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not enough. That's not good enough. If you're to
Yeah.
send a cold email to someone, like, what the fuck do you think they're going to say? They're
You
going to
got to
delete it.
stand out. Yeah.
But if you take more of that approach, in terms of, and I think that's key too, is that SaaS companies, you've interviewed them, what their pain points are. They're literally telling you every single week, and
Yeah.
you're able to design an offer that speaks specifically to their pain points. So
That's huge. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah,
Just to make it like the practical for everyone, I'm thinking about the book I read called The Mom Test. And it's basically on understanding your customers, on how to do customer development. And if you do want to eventually build your own SaaS company, you gotta have a process for customer development. So.
for sure. And when you mentioned that you were sending emails, were those cold emails, or were those two kind of like warm contacts from the past?
Yeah. So for this performance thing specifically, I didn't know most of them. And I remember we got 99 designs. And I think there was like this rental company in Minnesota and that, plastered all of America. So I would say 80% of them were cold.
Word. And how were you finding those people?
I was just, what I was doing at the time, because we didn't hone in on SaaS yet. I was just looking for, I think I just looked for top list of businesses or like trending businesses. And I just reached out to them. So.
And what was like the gist of the pitch that you sent them?
I think the headline was, do you want us to run ads risk-free? Do you want us to run your ads for you risk-free? Or like something around paying for performance only?
And are you guys still doing cold outreach now?
We aren't. What I will say, I'll actually have to double check on this. I think they're trying to start it back up again, but I will tell you our breakdown of customers now, 50% come from SEO, and then 35% comes from the relationships that I built, whether you want to call it speaking or networking, and 15% comes from podcast.
Okay. And so your SEO then is it has nothing to do with kind of the personal brand, and I know Neil's somewhat associated too, or you guys have your podcast together, which I'm sure drives a ton of eyeballs. But the sorry, I lost my train of thought.
It's separate. So I think where you're going was the SEO efforts are
Yes.
completely separate from the branding, right?
It-
So it is completely different. And if you're reading the blog, you probably have no inclination of who I am.
Okay.
So yeah.
So you guys have a team. Who's managing the content for the company right now?
Yeah, so we have a director of marketing, and then there's a head of content, and then under the head of content, there's a lot of different writers that we've used over the years, and we've just had a steady cadence of, I think it's 2 or 3 posts a week. I could be wrong; it might be 1 now, but we've slowly grown that over time. The numbers I'll share is when I first took over Single Grain, we're getting about 4,000 visits a month, and then now it's a little better. It's better. It's 350,000 visits a month.
That's
Um,
significant.
but it took about 3.5 years to even break 100,000. So it was such a long slog to get there.
Yeah, and in regards to that type of volume, do you find that you have to find topics that are kind of a stretch or a reach in terms of pivoting back to the business, or are they all pretty much in line with your offer and what you're selling?
They vary because we do talk about marketing funnels and podcast advertising. So we do go for marketing, trending marketing keywords that we think we can take on. And so a lot of it's not around paid media or SEO, ironically.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's a significant amount of traffic, so I'm always wondering. In regards to the topic process, that's something, especially with that much traffic and that much content. Like, how are you continuously developing these topics?
Yeah, so we use, I think my process, at least in the past, was I would use Hrefs, and I look at trending keywords as well, and I'd also take a look at the keywords that I rank for in Google Search Console. So I'm like, okay, I'm ranking a lot for these podcast advertising keywords. Why don't I just do more around that? And so that was our strategy for it, and it's worked out over the years. And I think we just combined that with Brian Dean's skyscraper technique, and then it worked out for us.
So you guys are doing outreach off the back of your posts as well.
Sorry. So on that piece of the skyscraper technique, we don't do that because we have a good enough domain authority now where naturally whatever we publish around marketing will tend to rank. So it's a little bit of the unfair advantage once you get to that.
For sure. I mean, but you earned it though, right? And how did you earn that? Like, what was the process of getting to that authority?
Initially, guest posting was already starting to become played out, but we were doing it. So when I first took over the company, I was like, okay, we need to do guest blog posting. We did the HubSpots, the social media examiners, Fortune, Time, whatever, Forbes. I don't think Forbes counts anymore, but we did a lot of that. And I will say we were pretty anchor text heavy in my bio. It would have digital marketing agency in it. And we actually, for a period of time, ranked #1 for digital marketing agency for like 3 years. And that was really helpful. So I will say, if you want to talk about SEO keywords too, once we established a higher domain authority, we started going for more of these agency type bottom of the funnel keywords again.
Nice. And how many people do you have now at Single Grain?
27.
Okay. Somebody over on Facebook just asked how to align your staff to your goals. I guess as you're growing, you're scaling, how do you keep that culture?
Yeah, I think I'll say for myself, and I'm guessing it might be the same for you, but me being a marketing nerd in the past was like, oh, it's all about marketing, it's all about revenue, execution. You realize it's all about the people, but if it's all about the people, you got to get the programming right, which is the culture. And that's the ultimate hack right there. So for us, I mean, I can share all the tactical things we do, but I think the biggest thing is making sure everyone's aligned with the vision. And people are like, oh, this pie in the sky thing. So I was talking actually with my business coach recently, and he's like, Eric, you have all these things going on, but how do they all connect? Like, what's the vision? And so I'm not in the day-to-day on the Single Grain side, but today they had an all hands, and I hadn't shown up for a while, and they're asking like where I was, right? So I decided to show up. I'll probably do it every 6 months. And then today I was like, look, guys, the vision is leveling up marketing businesses, because I have the book coming out, Leveling Up, right? And they're like, I could just see in their eyes, like they get it, right? So I think having that, like understanding what they're going for, instead of they're just waking up for a job, and making sure, yes, you have core values, you're hiring and firing based on those, you have a really good recruiting process, you're taking care of people, there's all that. But I think the overarching vision, it's important that you think about it every probably 6 months or so, and think about, do I need to adjust anything based on things that have happened?
Yeah, it's crazy. I was starting that too when a couple of years ago I had an agency that was acquired, and the acquiring agency, I came on as an executive, and we quickly grew to like 40 employees overnight. And none of us had ever managed that many people, especially coming from different processes, different schools of thoughts, different cultures. We're in Miami versus Philadelphia. It was a whole different thing. And I quickly realized that running a company of that size is really, like you said, it's not about marketing. It's about HR, really, is what it comes down to. It's 100% about the people, and it's 100% about being able to keep them happy and make sure that they're continuously doing a good job, which is a lot harder than it sounds, actually, surprisingly.
It's super hard. It's probably the hardest thing, I'd say. So
it's really hard. Yeah, it's just funny how you grow as an entrepreneur, and you realize, again, like, I started similar to you, probably just, starting blogs, getting traffic, thinking I was a shit. And then all of a sudden I realized that marketing only takes you so far. The
thing is, the advantage for us with an SEO background is you understand how to connect the dots better. And I think that type of systems thinking goes a long way when you think about putting together a company. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So how much time do you spend on a weekly basis at the agency?
The only time I spend right now is 30 minutes with the CEO. And then we also do a weekly or bi-weekly leadership training. So, last week we talked about delegation. Next time it's going to be recruiting. We're going to be talking about incentives and all that. It's just getting them aligned with the programming. And I actually bring in the operator from the software side too. So we do it together.
Nice.
That's all right now.
So you spend your time mainly on ClickFlow?
No. So we have an operator that runs that. My time primarily right now, and I got this from talking to a guy named Anthony Pompliano. He's on my podcast, and he's growing his audiences fairly large. We're talking 400,000 on Twitter in 3 years, 2.5 million downloads a month on his podcast, all these big numbers. I was like, so how do you spend, let me just shut Skype off real quick.
Oh, you're good.
I was like, so how do you spend your day-to-day right now? Because he's also an investor too, and he's responsible for people's money. And he's like, honestly, the highest leverage thing I do is I create content. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, look, my job is to get deal flow, to talk to interesting people. And, if I spend 45 minutes here, 100,000 minutes, a million minutes might be listened to. And I'm like, holy crap, I haven't spent nearly enough time on content. Like my YouTube channel, I can be spending a lot more time, podcast and all that. So I'm like, my ultimate goal, my highest leverage point is reach. I should be aiming for more reach, in addition to using my network to get deal flow. So right now we're trying to buy another agency. It's like $5 million. And like if I didn't have that relationship, we wouldn't be able to get those deals right now. So content, deals, that's all I'm focused on right now.
It's wild, right? I came to that realization a year and a half ago too. I was kind of, I was struggling with. We have three companies and
Yeah.
struggling with what do I need to spend my time on, and like constantly thinking that you constantly want moving up as the entrepreneurial ladder.
It's hard.
It's hard, but then I realized I was like the most valuable thing I can do with my time. The thing that people can't replicate and take from me is my ability to create and produce, and that is by far how I get the most reach. That's what drives eyeballs and attention. It's what feeds the companies, really. Really.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You had something to say?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about there's a guy named Dan Sullivan, and he has this concept of, $100,000 an hour tasks, 10,000, and you have $10 an hour tasks, right? So like scheduling stuff, whatever. And even talking to my coach recently, he's like, dude, you're doing too much into $1,000 an hour tasks. You need to go back to the $100,000 an hour tasks. And I'm like, okay, you're right. But to think of it in that lens, like just to map out all the things you work on each week, and I'm trying to make this a bit more valuable for people, or practical for people. Sorry. Yeah, that's how you should be auditing it probably every 6 months or so.
So James over here on Facebook brought up a good point. He said personal branding is a full-time job. How do you, and this is something that I've kind of struggled with too, because we do hands-on coaching with our agencies in the Blueprint, and we teach heavy on positioning, heavy on productization of services, and then also kind of like lead gen. But lead gen is always tough to teach because when I look at myself and how I generate leads, they're all inbound. They come from content that I've been putting out for the last decade. And I've always kind of struggled trying to teach that to people. But at the end of the day, I need to teach them what's best. And this is definitely the best way to do it. It just takes the longest amount of time. Like, how would you recommend that somebody kind of gets started who's, busy as hell every day, still in the weeds of running the agency, struggling with all the things they used to struggle with? How would you suggest that they can start on the content path?
I'll answer your question with a story, and you just tell me if you want me to give you more. So when I took over Single Brain, it was a failing SEO agency, and at the same time, I decided to start this podcast called Growth Everywhere. Very idiotic. I would spend 6 hours a week on it, interviewing people, preparing the notes. I was doing everything, right? I didn't hire anybody else. I didn't have any resources. So 6 hours a week on it. After the first year, while the agency was on fire, I was only getting 9 downloads a day. So probably at that point, it's like, should probably give up, you idiot. But I decided to go for another year. I'll go for another year. I'm only getting 30 downloads a day. So it's like, probably time to give up now. I decided to keep going. My point of saying all this is that it takes time to compound, whether you want to think SEO, YouTube, or podcast. It's typically a 12 to 18 month journey, if not 3 years. Same thing with business, probably 3 years. And so, was there like a crazy inflection point? Something happened? No, it started to take off. It started to compound. It wasn't like I did any crazy growth hacks. And from there, the audience started to build. At the same time, our SEO traffic started to build too. So we went from 4,000 to 25,000 to 50,000 a month, and we started getting more leads. I'm like, oh my God, the machine's starting to work, and your confidence starts to build. But when it was during those dark 2 years or so, what kept me going was understanding that the KPI was not really downloads. The KPI for me was the learnings, because as I was trying to save this business, I was getting a lot of insights from people that were way further along than I was. And those learnings were invaluable. So my KPI was learning, but also every month or so, I would get a comment from someone saying, I don't know why this doesn't get more listens. It doesn't get more ratings, because it deserves more. And that kept me going. I was looking for the unsolicited responses, and that should keep you going. Just look for those.
It's very helpful. Thank you for that. I sometimes have a little bit more of a brash. I guess not, brash isn't the right word. I don't know, but what I tell people all the time is that, because they ask me, and then I'm like, send me like your Twitter, some of your LinkedIn, and some of your Facebook profiles and your Instagram.
Yeah.
And when I look at them, like, they don't post at all. Nobody has any idea that they do what they do. I'm like, you need to start at just post on your fucking Facebook. Like, let people know that you do SEO. Like, let people know that you can help. Like, talk about like your wins. Talk about the stuff. Like, and that's honestly the hard. Like, a lot of people don't end up going this route. I don't think because they think it takes too long. I think because they're standing in their own way and they're afraid to get judged and they're afraid to get, have only 9 downloads. That's really hard, man. It feels like an indictment on the quality of your content, but it's not. People are just, feeds are loaded. People just don't see it, And
what you said, sharing in public, like, that's huge. Not enough people do that. I'm guilty of that. And you share your stuff and it's like good shit all the time. So
But in all fairness, if you go back to my YouTube channel and check it out 8 years ago when I started, it sucked. You know what I'm saying? It was whatever. I mean, it takes practice. Like you said, it's not something that happens overnight. Not everything is going to be great, and the more you do it, the more you learn from it. You know what I'm saying? It's not just like getting better on camera. It's also like you just learn more. Like if you force yourself to talk about SEO, you're just going to learn more about it.
Yeah.
And if you talk to other people, just like I'm talking to you, like I learn a lot from these interviews. You know what I'm saying? Like I do it for them, but I do it for myself too.
Yep.
So there's a lot of ways to do it, but I always tell people like starts with yourself. Like if you're not pushing yourself to do this, like even behind a screen, like that's the first step. You know what I'm saying?
Got to take care of yourself. Nobody's going to come save you. So
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So talk to me a little bit more too about kind of how you spend your time and your days, because I'm always fascinated with folks who have a lot of stuff going on. Like what's your main focus right now?
yeah, so I do have a theme for each day. So Mondays are typically, so we run off of Traction. So you have Traction, Entrepreneurs Operating System, Scaling Up. They're basically like operating systems for you, um, to run your business. And so I have two. Oh no, I don't have those meetings anymore. I only have one of those, and then the rest of them are all one-on-ones. So one-on-ones with my direct reports, and then we do have a because my book's coming out, we have a book meeting, and then we have a brand meeting that's more so for the YouTube stuff, the podcast stuff that we have going on. Now Fridays are completely blocked off. That's for thinking. I might have like a marketing school batch episode on Fridays, and then Thursdays are all content. So this entire day is like podcasts, me doing YouTube videos, and I've actually made it now a priority to create YouTube content every single day. So my calendars are largely. I used to be scheduled to the like crazy, right? We're talking like 15 to 18 calls a day, and I used to think, oh my god, I'm so productive. But I think the pendulum swings sometimes where you might aim for days where you have nothing booked, and that time open space is for creativity. And that's not to say I might not swing back into the other direction and go crazy again, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. From for Tuesdays and Wednesdays, it's just open.
That
So
requires a lot of discipline. That's hard for me to do. I've tried to do that before in the past, like blocking off like 4 hours on a Wednesday to create content. But like if my mind's not in it, if I'm
yeah.
mentally somewhere else, I can't do it. I mean, so when you block off like a whole day, do you show up to podcasts with like a list of topics, or YouTube with a list of topics, or you just kind of like turn on your camera and talk about what's on your mind?
You know what I started doing? I started researching how the YouTube creators, like the Mr. Beast of the world, like what's their process exactly, right? And so just listening to them because they're 20, 22 years old, whatever, and there's a lot to learn from them. And so what I got from him was that like he wakes up in the morning and he'll read, for me, I'll read a lot of different newsletters, Wall Street Journal, CMO Today, whatever. And I'll read trending topics too. What's going on, I haven't read Mashable for years, but I got that idea from them. Mashable, what else is going on HuffPo or whatever. And then I'll come up with, my goal is to read for at least 30 minutes. And then I'll come up with 5 to 10 different headlines. And then I'll decide from there. Most of it's going to be garbage, but I'll pick out 1 to 2 things that I want to make. And then the rest of that is I'm also creating more podcasts now for Leveling Up, which is my own podcast. So
Mhm. In the book that you're writing, is that published traditionally, or is that published via Amazon?
yeah, great question. So we decided to go with a hybrid publisher. So the way that works is it's they have a book team. It's like a traditional publisher in the sense that they have a book team. They're going to push you. They're going to try to get you into like all the airport stores, even though that doesn't really matter right now. And they've done a really good job with the book. They've helped put the entire thing together and all that. But I have the rights to the book. So if I want to use my marketing prowess or whatever you want to call it and do book funnels and run paid ads and have like upsells, one-time offers and all that,
Mhm.
I can do both now. So
Are you going to?
uh, is that,
Are,
did
are,
you
are,
ask?
you, are you going to run book funnels?
Yeah, I think so. I think right now we're trying to do customer development to figure out what these people want. I don't want to just guess, but my hunch is that a journal would be cool, but there's so many journals out there. It's just, I'm
Yeah.
just like, this would just be a different spin. So
It's really hard to sell books to cold audiences. I'll say that. We published a book. It was on Amazon.
yeah. What happened?
I mean, I just realized we got it. They're better for warm audiences. So basically, our book sells evergreen because the top. It's our SEO process. It's evergreen, especially for agencies.
Mhm.
Um, so we just run remarketing ads to anyone who's been to one of our websites
Got it.
within 3 days. Yeah, and then we push it to our list. I mean, because so like we're basically a community, right? So our community is constantly growing. We're constantly getting new people in the ecosystem. I mean, you know, the value of a book in a lot of different ways, especially for some people who love to read. So they're very impactful. Especially, I actually had we had a lead come into the agency the other day, and he was the guy. Because some people don't know that it's just a Amazon published book; they just see it.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Wow, like it's super impressive. You guys have a book." I was like, "Yeah, you know, like anyone can do it. Like you just write something and upload it." But yeah, I mean, books can be very effective, but I don't think it doesn't work. I just think that the topic has to be good, the landing page has to be good, the copies, the custom, the everything has to be good.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I would say, for us, I think what we've landed on, because the book is related to gaming and the audience is so big with gaming, we're actually getting emails at a very good cost right now, about less than 50 cents per email. We'll see how it ends up converting. It's still really early days right now, so I'll let you know.
What Amazon ads work really good too. I mean, we do run those. We spend like $20 a day on Amazon ads. We sell like, I don't know, like $5 a day
Got it.
on Amazon.
So the book has brought you. It sounds like it's bringing you leads. It's bringing you.
Yeah, dude. I mean, if you
Yeah.
if you I read Ask, you read Ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that book was like very well laid out in terms of like funneling. It's a funnel into our training platform, essentially, right? So I kind of modeled it after that, just like laden with like templates to do SEO, and then like visit our microsite leads to an opt-in, and then they get access to a free trial of the course, and then you know we're calling on them from them for the sales process.
Good deal.
Yeah, it's worked really well for that. I also just think it adds a level of professionalism. It just gives you another marketing angle, especially when a lot of people aren't writing, especially good books. Assuming that your book is good, like they work really well. I have no doubt that you'll have success with it. When is it supposed to come out?
February 24th.
Okay, coming up. How much of a hand do you have in writing it?
I wrote the whole thing. So
You wrote the whole thing?
yeah.
Damn, dude. That's impressive.
Well, so did you, right? I mean,
No, dude, I didn't write anything. I wrote an outline for it. I don't write anymore. It takes too much time. I'm actually, so a perfect example of why I don't write anymore. There's a post
yeah.
that I have to write because it's about like this productized audit that we put together that we're going to be selling through our software company. And like, I'm the only one with the intimate knowledge, so I have to write it. It's taken me 12 days now to finish this post.
It's hard. I mean, I don't know about you, but when's the last time you actually wrote a blog post?
I did. That's what I'm saying. I don't write anymore. I have my process is based on video first because I can just talk, and then I have a really good writer who just writes it for me off the back end.
I don't think I'll ever write a book again. I think I'm just gonna go through like I think it's a co-writer, or a ghostwriter. So
yeah, I mean, there's really good companies out there that did it. We hired a company that we partnered with at the agency to send, because we don't write content in our agency either, so we partnered with the content writing agency and they wrote it. I did like I was very involved with it. That's all I was asking. Like. Google Docs every day, sending voice notes, like sending kind of edits that way. It's just how I communicate better, and it just saved me a lot of time. But dude, I can't imagine writing that book. That you have tremendous discipline as a person, I can tell.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what. It took. So they often say it takes a lot longer than you think. So it actually took. It's been like a 4-year journey, and I would write it on planes and stuff, and have no internet and all that. So, and here's the thing: if you ever write your book, just understand that your editor will destroy it. You're gonna have to go through like 7 different drafts after they edit, so it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
it's a lot of work. But it's kind of like it's I don't want to call it like a career defining moment, but it's definitely a big step for a career. It opens just a lot of doors too in terms of when you come on podcasts. You got like it's so much easier to promote a book than it'd be like come buy our course. You know what I'm saying? So it gives you like a really nice thing to promote. Yeah, I mean, it gives you a really nice thing to promote on podcasts. It's probably one of the best ways to sell a book, I would say, actually, is being on other podcasts. So is there anything else you want to talk about while I got you here? Anything else on your mind?
No, I think it's just, I guess the only thing that's top of mind for me right now, actually, we can talk about the book marketing stuff, because that's what's top of mind for me right now. So podcast tours definitely work. I talked to a couple of bestsellers, and my goal is to get on 100. I mean, this is definitely one of them. And so far I'm booked for 40, right? And I'm trying to do it before February happens. And so that works out well. But also what we're doing too is because we feel like the attention on YouTube is heavily under monetized. So for example, if you have a channel of 5 million followers and each video gets 500,000 to 1 million views, if you give me a good CPM on it, I'll probably pay for that. Facebook is also unfair too, because you have a lot of these gamers hanging out probably on Instagram, and you have a really good offer. And our offer is it's a contest right now, right? And then a lot of people are opting in, and because we're running that contest right now, we're spending like $700 a day. we're also getting like 400, 500 YouTube subscribers a day too. So it's kind of a benefit across the board. So
For sure. For sure. I actually had when I first started doing this interview series 2 years ago, a guy named he's from Kindlepreneur. He basically is an expert in kind of like Amazon book SEO. I interviewed him and I basically kind of literally brought him on just to talk about like launching our book.
Yep.
But he has some really good insights about that you would probably dig because
I did the same exact thing you did, except I forgot that I had him. So thank you for that.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah.
His name's Dave Chess. I don't know if we're talking about the same guy or for somebody
Yeah.
else,
Same
but
guy. Same guy.
yeah, dude, he's incredibly intelligent around this stuff.
Yep.
But so much of getting things to win on Amazon, it's about click-through rates, about conversion rate.
Yeah.
He just had like a lot of really good insights about like everything about like the image that you put on Amazon, the page title, like all that different stuff. It was super helpful.
Yep.
Word. All right, man. I appreciate you coming on. I know you're a busy dude, and I know it's still daylight over there in California, so I'll let you go. Tell the people one more time how they can find you and give that book a big plug.
Yeah, thanks for that. So thanks for having me. Levelingup.com if you want a free chapter of the book. So I got the domain. And then you can go to your favorite online retailer. Just type in Leveling Up Eric Siu. Any support would be great. And if you want to message me on Twitter, Instagram at @EricoSiu. And yeah, that's it.
One final question. Sorry, came in from Julie at the last second. Do you use an agency to book yourself on podcasts and to book guests?
Good question. I do not, because they typically will, they'll pad the numbers by getting you onto like really small podcasts, and they'll count that. So my EA helps me with that, and then she'll send me a list. I'll scrub it, and then she'll send it to another VA that will get all the emails. And her response rate is anywhere from 10 to 20%, with about a 65-70% open rate. So
that's good. That's really good, actually. Awesome, man. Again, thank you, and I'll let you know this goes live, brother.
Cool. Have a good night.
Take care,
Go
man.
get some rest. See ya.